What if a country had no oil, but believed it did? What if they searched anyway, against expert advice, and struck black gold deep beneath the ocean? This isn't a myth. This is the story of Brazil. And the rise of its state-owned oil giant, Petrobras. In the early 1900s, Brazil wasn't known for oil. It was a coffee empire, controlling 75% of the global market. Then came the 1929 crash. Coffee prices collapsed. So did Brazil's economy. Out of the chaos came a new vision: industrialize or perish. In 1930, Getulio Vargas seized power and declared that Brazil needed its own energy, its own oil. But there was a problem. Experts said Brazil had none. Still, some refused to accept that. Monteiro Lobato, a famous author, accused the government of working with foreign oil giants to keep Brazil dependent. His cry? "The oil is ours," people laughed. But he wasn't wrong. In 1939, Brazil found its first commercial well in Bahia. Only 200 barrels a day, but it was a spark. In 1953, that spark became a flame. Vargas founded Petrobras, Brazil's state oil company. Petrobras had no oil fields, no rigs, no real experience. So Brazil hired Walter K. Link, a seasoned American geologist. He drilled and drilled. 200 wells, $200 million. His conclusion? There is no major oil in Brazil. Boom, backlash. Link was called a saboteur, even a foreign spy. But two Brazilian geologists, Maher and Adon, disagreed. They looked deeper. And in 1963, they struck the Carmópolis field, the largest onshore discovery yet. Still, it wasn't enough. Brazil imported 80% of its oil. And prices were rising fast. Then came the 1973 oil crisis. Prices skyrocketed. Brazil panicked. Petrobras turned to the ocean. It had no choice. Deepwater drilling was risky, costly, unproven. But Brazil went all in. They launched floating rigs, used seismic data, built digital mapping systems. In 1968, they struck Brazil's first offshore oil. Then came Campos Basin. Geologists said it was worthless. One man said, "Drill deeper." At 3,401 meters, they found oil. The oil wasn't commercial, but it was hope. More drilling revealed the Garupa field. Petrobras was onto something. But Brazil didn't have time for slow success. So they hacked the system. Using a North Sea trick called the early production system, Petrobras tied floating rigs directly to subsea wells. They went from discovery to production in 2 years. That's lightning speed in oil. Petrobras then discovered a game-changer: turbidites. Underwater landslides that trap oil. Found in the Gulf of Mexico, North Sea, and Brazil. One turbidite led to the Marlim field, a monster. Marlim was buried under salt, sediment, and 850 meters of water. Petrobras used dynamic positioning drillships, satellite-guided rigs that float without anchors. It worked. Marlim produced billions of barrels. By the 1990s, Petrobras was no longer just an oil company. It was a deepwater innovator. It built floating production units, FPUs, ships that drill, store, and transport oil at sea. Marlim had 12 FPUs by 2016. Then came the pre-salt revolution. Fields buried under 2,000 meters of water, 4,000 meters of rock, and thick salt layers. These were the hardest fields on Earth. Petrobras found them, mapped them, drilled them. Today, almost all of Brazil's 11.4 billion barrels of reserves are offshore. As of 2023, Brazil is an oil exporter. In Petrobras? It's a global player. Not bad for a country that was told, "There is no oil here." Here's the truth. Brazil didn't find oil because of luck. It found oil because of belief. Because people like Lobato refused to be silenced. Because engineers dared to drill deeper. Because a country refused to give up. faith, innovation, resilience. That's how Brazil struck black gold. And that's why Petrobras is more than just an oil company. It's a symbol of national will, forged beneath the sea.